Well,
Okay, I think we are.
okay. And this is the uh, session for September 28th, 2023. And Shelly Ann, I have to say that you have made this so easy for us. I came into this today a little unsure because I wasn't here last week to go through the routine a second time. And the first time I was doing it was 2 weeks ago. So I've kind of it's just not in my genetics yet. And it was so easy. Once I had the link and went in and went through the procedure, it was so easy. So, to the outside world, those who are watching this live, because we're streaming in several places now, this is Open Conversations with international coaches. And today's topic is cultivating self compassion. And for some, that may mean self love or self care. And we'll kind of talk around the issue a little bit. But I'd like everybody to introduce themselves first. And Shelly Ann, you get off the hook today because Gerald is in my number one position. Go ahead, Gerald. Tell us who you are, where you're from, and what you do.
Hi, my name is Gerald, and I'm from the Lanarkshire, Scotland area. And basically, I just give people a sense of direction, pretty much. Whereas they know what they want, what their desire is, helps them make their daily choices and decisions when they know where it is that they want to reach out to, and pretty much give them some guiding techniques and skills to help them on their way. That's it.
It's awesome. Shelly Ann, go ahead.
Hi, my name is Shelley Ann Edwards Barron. I am from the beautiful island of Trinidad and Tobago, and I am a gratitude guide and habit coach. And what that means is that I use the power of daily habits with the power of a daily practice of gratitude to help my clients identify what is going to get them to where they need to be and implement the habits to get them there.
Excellent. Cass, go ahead.
Hi, I'm Cass. I'm a holistic life mentor running out of Canada, and I do both in person and virtual appointments. I run Catastrophe.com. Catastrophe is about living through the chaos around us and still finding the path that brings us the greatest joy in life. We can't wait for our moment to happen to us. We must make our moment now. It's about taking a hold of the power and taking up space in the world that we deserve. I believe that you can do whatever makes your heart sing. And I'm not here to give you the answer for that, but I'm here to help you see all your options from a different perspective. I'm not leaning you in any particular direction, but I'm here to let you know that whatever direction you choose is okay.
Absolutely awesome. Um, I guess it's my turn to fill in there. And I'm an online content creator, web presence consultant, business success guide, and personal development mentor. That covers a range of things, but I believe in a holistic approach and want to put kind of the whole package together. I'm available, approachable, and affordable. Feel free to contact me anytime for a no charge, no obligation consultation to determine if I'm the right fit for your needs. And the time to hire your guide is before you get lost in the woods. So that brings us to the uh, topic at hand, cultivating self compassion. Who wants to start us off with some comments on that subject?
I can jump in there
Sure.
for sure. So self-compassion is about looking at the ways that we treat ourselves, usually when we make a mistake or we're failing. And we are usually our own harshest critic. We put a lot of pressure on ourselves and the need to succeed. But I think that self-compassion is about acknowledging that things like just showing up is a win. Just, making that first step towards your goal, that's a win. The way that we think about how we would treat a friend who is going through the same mistake or failure with kindness, and it's turning that kindness around on using it on ourselves. I think something I pulled up while I was looking into this is that Harvard Medical School says Some people come by self-compassion naturally, but not everyone does. And for our purposes, luckily, it's a learnable skill.
Yeah.
Awesome. And that really kind of sums the whole thing up in a very simple, basic undertaking. And it is important that we treat ourselves well. The first book that I wrote many years ago, I talk about the 10 steps to staying focused on your objectives. And one of the important steps is rewarding yourself. And that's kind of the outer edge of self care or self compassion, but it is part of it in that when we make achievements, we deserve to be rewarded. And especially in today's busy life, and the just the cacophony of things that are around us, and Gerald can speak to that. But we have more of a need. We're on our own in many cases. We're lonely in many cases, and we're working for ourselves. We don't have people around us. We don't have bosses to, either criticize or reward us. And so we have to reward ourselves. And sometimes that can be, a big reward, taking the family out to dinner. And when they say, "What's this for?" you say, "I just did okay today, so let's celebrate." Or it can be a simple thing like taking a break and, filling the coffee cup up again. A whole range of things, but self rewards are, self compassion. I think that's important.
I definitely picked up on one of the things that you said there about if rewarding yourself when you have an achievement. I agree with that. And I think sometimes it's important just to reward yourself, just to celebrate being, even if you haven't accomplished a goal or a task or whatever. I think Parks and Rec, they have a treat yourself day where they just step out and do all the things, whether it's, get a pedicure. I mean, money being no object necessarily, but it might be a walk in the park. It might be taking the time to paint because that's something that you enjoy, whatever that is that you consider treating yourself. I think sometimes it's important just to do that for no reason, and that's part of self-care and self-compassion.
Absolutely. And you can do that because you made it through the day. You didn't
Yeah,
let
that's what I'm
they get you
thinking.
down. Yeah.
Yeah. That's what I'm thinking. I think, it brings us to the question of what, when we think of compassion, most times we think of applying compassion in a situation where there's a challenge. And when we're responding to the challenge, do we respond negatively, or there's a failure? Do we respond with negative comments? But it's important, as Cass mentioned, to recognize that compassion is not necessarily in response to a specific incident or occurrence. It's an ongoing, regular, daily, every moment. I love myself and I'm compassionate toward myself kind of thing.
Mhm.
Yeah, I really think that there's different ways that you can look at self-compassion. Like you can look at it from the body, the mind, and there's different ways to achieve that. So I have a little list here that I was going to share a bit about. Your body is an important part of your mind. You can't have a mind without a body. So taking care of it, having a rest, or engaging in mindful movement, or eating something from the rainbow. I think we've heard about that, the color chart of food and what's good for your body. Going for a swim, doing self-massage, or something that I love, which is called earthing, where you go walk barefoot in the soil or the grass and just reconnecting. So I'll leave it at that for my list right now. There are a couple more, but I'll let other people jump in for a bit.
Yeah, and I'm thinking, just some days just doing nothing. Because it's like at least for me, the process of coming out of being a workaholic, it was really important for me to just pause on some days and not think that I have to fill the time with some activity. So it's okay to have some time during the day when there is nothing to do. There is no demand on, accomplishing this or that. It's just a time that I can be. And even with mindfulness, I don't even have to sit and be mindful. I can just be and exist in those moments and not worry that I'm missing something or I'm not doing something that I'm supposed to be doing, which is what really had a huge impact on me, with always thinking there's always a project, there is always something to accomplish. If something is finished, while I'm in the process of finishing that, I'm thinking ahead on what's to do next. So, the celebration is very short if it exists at all. And so that constant feeling of going, 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 interrupting that meant just literally sometimes I wake up and if I choose to have a cup of tea, I have that. If I choose to roll back over, I can get another half an hour. That's okay too. Some time when I can just be and choose.
Yeah, where your day isn't dictated by your projects. It's dictated by that self-compassion.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I
Yeah.
think what you touched on there, Cass, was the earthing. What did you call it? About like walking on the grass or the stand with your bare feet. Well, that took me back to when I was down in England and I had that luxury going out the back with my bare feet onto the grass, and it was all new to me. But wow, when you reminded me there, I miss it. That is that grounding and that escapism. And I was just looking up, it says happiness is more emotional and spiritual than it is a matter of acquiring material things. Like how you had said, Cass, go out and get the manicure or maybe buy something or anything. These are the rewards that we're looking for. And Steve had touched on, we do have to reward ourselves and feel, going back to the self-compassion and, we're good enough. And it's time to, you were saying, Shelly Ann, to stop right now and go make yourself a cup of coffee. That'll wait. Whereas right now I feel like going for a coffee and then it also pulls us forward. It gives us that sense of direction. Whereas I feel like that earthing gives that moment to yourself that you were talking about, Shelly Ann, and just existing. It takes away from the just existing. You're giving it to yourself. You're out grounding. To realize you're taking this time for yourself right now. You're
Mm.
rewarding yourself because you're worth it. And then, as you said, you called this like self love as opposed to the self compassion, but that's just exactly what it is.
hmm yeah. I maintain a very erratic schedule. It actually has some organization in the chaos, but I deal with clients all over the globe, and so different days I have meetings with people at different times that meet their schedule, and so sometimes I'm up very late into what my Scottish grandmother used to call the wee hours of the morning, and I won't get to bed until 2 or 2:30. And other days I've been to sleep, but I'm getting up early at 3, 4 o'clock. This morning, I had slept for a while. I went to bed at a reasonable time and slept. And then I got up at about uh, pretty close to 4 o'clock. Um, Laura was had been up and was going to bed, but before she did, she was going outside to sit on the porch. We have a front porch that faces east, And I sometimes go out there after I've been working for a while. If I get up at 4ish and I'm working around 6:30, I'll go out there and watch the sun come up. And at 4 o'clock in the morning, when at this time of year, if we go out there, it's still dark. Venus is just up in the eastern sky above the trees, and the sun hasn't yet started to, turn the sky pink. And we sit there on the porch. We've got 2 rocking chairs out there, a couple of oldies, and we sit out there and just relax. And sometimes I'll have a coffee, and sometimes not. And it is so quiet and so peaceful. We're on one of the main north-south arteries in our city, and by 6 o'clock in the morning, cars are just whipping by, whoosh, 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 and then by 3:30 in the afternoon, they're going the other way, whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. And so at that time of the morning, when it's still dark, it's quiet. There's no, traffic sounds or equipment sounds or anything. And there's this beautiful sky, a little bit of light pollution from the city and often a haze here in Kansas, but, still good view of some of the stars. And that 15 minutes is worth hours of rest.
Yeah.
It's just so perfect, so relaxing. I come back in and I'm ready to go. And I think that to me is one of the key focal points of self-care, self-compassion. I give myself that reward whenever I can. Sometimes I'm out there in the day. I have been out there on occasion when the traffic is busy going by, which is why I know that it does. And those are not the best times. But mid-afternoon, 2:30, it's quiet. The kids aren't out of school yet. The rush hour traffic isn't there yet, and it's not bad. And by that time in the afternoon, the sun has gone to the other side of the house, so it's not burning down on me. I'm in the shade of the house, and we have a wonderful neighborhood with a lot of trees. So it's a very natural place, a lot of squirrels, a lot of feral cats, a couple of families of raccoons, several trees with owls nesting in them, and then, of course, the plethora of birds that are picking away at the lawns and the gutters along the streets and so on for whatever they can find. So it reminds me a little bit of where I grew up, which was a community of houses fairly close together, but out in a very rural area. So we had the best of both worlds, and I feel that here now. So it's not only self care, but it's a rebirth. It's kind of interesting.
You paint a really lovely picture. I feel like I could be there when you're there in the mornings.
Mm.
Yeah, and I'm thinking about what you said about those 15 minutes can replace hours. And it made me think of the self-care, self-compassion, and the quality of what is engaged in versus the quantity.
Yeah.
So you don't have to set aside 2, 3 hours in your day or, even an hour, 15 minutes
Mhm.
of calm and peace and, rejuvenation, revitalization, listening to music or whatever it is you choose, that could be enough to show, hey, I love me, I care about me, and I'm compassionate to me.
Mhm.
I had a friend who used to put on earbuds at lunch hour and go for a walk around the building. It was a big building complex, and that was how he spent his moments giving back, rejuvenating. Had his lunch break to go around. It was really lovely to see that he did that every day. He took that time every day. He'd eat, and then 15 minutes was his time to just focus inside and relax and not be stressed by the work environment.
Yeah.
It's interesting to say how it was wonderful for you to see that every day you put that time aside to do that on a daily basis. Whereas normally when we're talking about self-compassion, self-love, and what we're doing for ourselves, how we're rewarding ourselves, and are we doing it? Is it something that we focus on in a daily basis? Or is it just, oh, I know what that is, but are we doing it? Are we setting time aside? Okay, well, if I did set the time aside, what would work for me? Would the earthing be the pods, or I mean, Steve, you touched on a word there that brought something to mind. You mentioned arteries. And I was listening to somebody, and he was talking about the distractions and the stress and the anxiety of the rat race that we're talking about a program about at the moment. Is he was saying your love arteries, like your self love arteries, are being strangled. You don't have time to love yourself because you're too busy stressed and
Yeah.
anxiety and worrying. And I loved how he said your love arteries. I mean, that's what's keeping us alive.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, absolutely.
And I also heard that like our heart, our loving heart, is pumping the joy, through with our blood, is pumping the joy through our veins. So it's
Mm.
so important that when it was the love arteries word, that if we're all stressed and tightened up and everything's all, our blood's not flowing and we're not in serenity, tranquility, like you were talking there, Shelly Ann, and we're not just in that zone, we're not just in that moment of just being grateful. Uh-huh. And when
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned gratitude because that's it for me when it comes to that habit of, self-compassion. That is how I cultivate it, that is how I maintain it, and I've built that as a habit. And that is one of the lingering benefits of a daily habit of gratitude, because the idea of taking time to feel grateful and recognize what's happening around you, recognize what's happening in you, recognize what you are doing, what others are doing, what exists, that those few minutes really help to open my eyes about, okay, this happened, that happened, this is happening, that is happening, but I can still step out of all of that and love me and recognize what's good and what's happening for me in the midst of everything else.
Yeah, this is one of the places where I like to toss in mindfulness. Other than just having that blissful Zen moment, you can also sort of really focus on what's happening around you, in you, for you in that moment. I like to do the 5-4-3-1 method, where you look at 5 things you can see, 4 things you can feel, 3 things you can touch, 2 things you can smell, and 1 thing you can taste. I think that's the order of
Yeah.
it, and really taking in all the senses of what's going on in your moment right then. And I find that that's something that I can then turn into, oh, like I can smell that my coffee is brewing right now, or oh, I can feel the soft chair that I'm sitting on, or oh, those things that I'm like, I put those in place for me. That's my self-compassion, that I have made these routines and these habits of creating the environment that I can thrive in and really, do my best and be my best self.
Oh, that's it. This morning I was completing one of the lessons for the habit coaching course that I'm working on right now. And the lesson was on our built environment, and how one of the things that helps us sustain habits is when we arrange our built environment in a way that makes whatever habit we are engaging with feel very easy to do and rewarding at the same time. And that's exactly what you just described. So if, let's say, you want to blog more often, then how have you arranged your built environment to allow you to feel blogging as something comfortable and easy? Is it that where you're seated, is your chair comfortable? Are you at a good distance to type well from the computer? Is it loud or is it too bright? How can you really make that space feel inviting?
That's a
Mhm.
very important aspect of it too that we don't often think about. And I work with clients that are uh, often starting a business or expanding a business and deal with their immediate business environment. And many of them are running businesses from home based businesses, online businesses, as we're doing today more often. And they simply kind of allow things to happen. They try to run their business from the kitchen table after the kids have gone to school or after they've had breakfast in the summer. And then they clear the table and mama sets up for business, a laptop computer and a few books and files. But the kids are running around. They're coming from the living room in to ask questions and a whole variety of things. And so the environment is not good. So, they need to take a look at it. Um, and certainly in many cases, if it's a work at home mom or a work at home dad, they're um, they're having the work environment, but they have to factor in the family. It's not only in the home, but the kids are there in many cases. They're preschool or it's not school days, and so they have to consider those and factor those into what they're doing. And sometimes it's possible to separate the business from the family, but sometimes it's not. And so you have to take a look at the environment and find the best structure and the best place to
Yeah.
work both aspects of it. And so it becomes a bit of a juggle.
I was going to jump in there and say when I used to run a nonprofit organization, and while we were getting stuff set up for a vending fair that we were going to be presenting at, my son was 6, and I was very lucky that he was so enamored by what I was doing that he was like, oh, can I do that too? And he started making little packets. He designed his own company. He designed his own website. He just wrote up little, and it was all for play, but that's what kept him occupied while I was occupied doing my work. And it was really, really fortuitous. Not all kids will be like that.
Mm-hmm. It's good. It's
Yeah.
good to involve your kids with that, though. The tendency is to push the kids away and get them to watch TV or play on their tablet or
Device.
their
Yeah.
smartphone, their device, and keep them busy while you do what you're doing. But if you can involve them in some way, sometimes if you're going to set up an office with a desk and you've got a young child, get a child's desk and chair for them to be able to come in and sit at a desk and find things that they can do, even if it's just coloring in a coloring book or whatever it is, but give them purpose in what they're doing. And it can be amazing what they will show you. And so together you're being involved in self-compassion. You're getting the child to work in an area, and I use the word work loosely, but to be involved in a concept that allows them to be self-compassionate in that time and feel part of what's going on, not being pushed outside.
Absolutely.
I think this would be a good time for me to jump in when you say pushed outside, because I was taking notes there, and some of the words that we've been throwing about, like blissful and the Zen moment. I think it was you that said it, Cass. And then the tranquility, the serenity, focus, habits, being grateful. And that kind of took me to, it seems as though nowadays we're tapping more into the subconscious mind than we have before. And then recently it was brought to my attention about the universal mind. However, that's why it was a good time to jump in, because we're talking about our environment and basically feeling that you're in control of your life and not not the environment round about you is in control. That's what causes the stress and unhappiness. Whereas if you're feeling inside that you're in control, that you're behind the wheel, you're in the driver's seat, then you feel a lot more relaxed and are happy. Whereas that's more the conscious mind. Because when we're looking out for, a universal mind, the universe is going to help us, this is going to help us, and the subconscious mind just reacts in automatic pilot, we're not actually conscious about how powerful we really are and looking for more, and by being grateful. Because the more grateful we are for what we've got, the more we'll get. So are we looking outside more? And outside seems to be the place that doesn't make us happy, because we don't feel as if we're in control when we're looking out for it. Why don't we consciously look in? Because it's that conscious mind that's pushing the buttons for the subconscious mind. It's our conscious mind, the captain analogy, who's telling the subconscious mind, our crew, what to do. Make me happy. And focusing on the work again, the blissfulness, the Zen moment. What am I looking for? I'm looking for some tranquility, for some serenity.
Yeah. As you said that, looking in, what popped into my mind was when we look in, whatever we find, self-compassion comes into play there, because sometimes we look in and we don't like what we find, and the way we treat with that discovery of the thing that, okay, I don't like this thing about me, or I don't, whatever the pushback is, that's an opportunity for self-compassion there. So we take the time to look in, and sometimes we find this is who we want to be, but this is who we are right now. How do we treat with that gap?
I think something that you've got me working on, Steve. Basically, it comes down to like what you were saying, Shelley Ann. What do we see when we look inside? Whereas that comes at self-passion. Whereas that comes using words again. Are we feeling a victim, or what are we doing? How are we labeling ourselves? How are we perceiving ourselves? And it really comes down to self-discipline for our own happiness. Because if we take responsibility for why if we're not unhappy, then, well, what are you doing about it? You're not going to like the person if he's unhappy. Like if I looked at my reflection in the mirror and I was feeling unhappy because of the situation of my life, but I wasn't going to do anything about it, I wasn't being responsible, so I wouldn't like that person. And the more we look after ourselves, the more we love ourselves, the easier it is to love ourselves. So basically how to do that is self-discipline. What do you want? Having a sense of direction. And quite a few times I've thought about this, as you said, Steve, now that we're using the StreamYard, a lot of people will have missed out on the topics that we've covered, and we're going to cover them again for their benefit. And I can see why people not or missing some of these are not able to put them all together, link them together, because it's so difficult not to, because they're all habits, focus, words, consciously, subconsciously, all this, like being a human, having a sense of direction. It's
all interwoven.
Yes,
Yeah.
So that's why, basically I always go back to the starting point of what direction do you want to be moving in? Because we've still got all them to wove in, no matter what direction you're going in. So if you're going in a direction of intent, then it's going to be more positively woven stuff and more helpful woven stuff, as opposed to going in going through the fog.
When I introduced myself, I made reference to 4 diverse areas or niches of mentoring or coaching. And I said, I look at the holistic view. And we have to understand that a person moving in a single direction, we often like to visualize that as a line on a map. And it may vary where it goes, just like a road on a map might not be perfectly straight. But it's also more like, rather than like being on a motorcycle or in a car on a road, it's more like here in Kansas, the big farm combines that have the big rolling blades on the front that are quite wide, maybe as wide as a highway, taking in the crop and bringing it into the processor and out the back into a trailer or some other storage area. And it is taking a wide swath through where it's going. And that's what I think we all do as we travel through our lives, where, there may be the odd person who is so narrowly focused you could define their line of movement. But I think most of us anyway, and probably the vast majority, and certainly any thinking people that are also curious, are going to be taking a broader swath as they go, and they will be turning left and right from time to time to catch something that's just outside of their swath that they're encompassing, but they want to catch that or they want to catch that. And I think that the whole idea of self-compassion is giving yourself the ability to go this way to pick that up and go this way to pick that up. Those are things that may not be in and of themselves key important factors, but they're things that catch your attention. And that is important to our own self-development as we explore that. We explore that as we're moving forward in what Gerald calls the sense of direction, but scooping up a little bit more than just the path.
Yeah, I agree very much with that analogy there, Steve. And I think that part of that is looking at the full spectrum of emotions too. That if we're always just striving for that happiness, then we might get upset at ourselves for being angry. But that anger could be a motivator that's going to send us towards our next challenge or goal or whatever we need. If we see something that's not being done right, and I don't mean like in the right way. I mean like houselessness. When you see people on the streets, and that your city isn't dealing with that in a way that's benefiting, the people at the bottom, then you might have a righteous anger, and you might look for justice, and you might want to make a difference and
find
canvas
solutions.
for a little. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And so happiness is a really wonderful journey that also encompasses all these other emotions. And so looking for those things that pull us different ways on our path can bring us closer to our path.
Yeah, and it might be a bright, shiny thing, as in my sort of example, but it might also be a dull, dark emotion, as you've mentioned, anger, but so many other emotions, depression and other things. But those are flags. Those are not necessarily warning signs, although they certainly can be that, but maybe not as advanced as that. They're just, put a pin in it. They're just, put a sticky note on the page of your book. They're just a little thing that brings that to your attention so that you can deal with it. If you don't recognize it out there, then you don't deal with it. Not that you can't, but you don't. And so,
Yeah.
Absolutely.
you end up passing it by, and it becomes baggage holding you back. It becomes an anchor. I think you've really touched on something there, the spectrum of emotion. And we ignore the other good emotions, but we also ignore the I don't want to call them bad emotions, but the the downside emotions that
I,
we ignore them at our peril.
I think I just call them all emotions
Mm,
because it isn't the emotion that's good or bad or positive or negative. It's what we do
what
with
we
the
do.
emotion,
Yeah, yeah,
right?
yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely.
and giving ourselves this space, I really, really love that point because when you said that, it reminded me of what was his name? Chijoke?
Hmm.
Hmm.
Am I getting his name correctly? With
Chijioke,
the
yeah.
Yes, with the multipotentialite concept,
Hmm.
because so many times we believe that we need to have that singular focus. But even when you have a sense of direction, you can have a sense of exploration with it.
Hmm.
Yeah.
And I've often wondered about we've had this conversation before several times. We have this way of asking children when they're like 6 and 7, what do you want to be when you grow up? And we expect an answer. And if they don't know, we ask them, how come, you don't want to be anything? Well, the child is 6. How much have they been exposed to to even come to any kind of thought? So it really made me think about that. And I love the idea of being able to explore. And so even like with my own kids, I we discuss and I allow them to explore. I don't say, well, okay, you said you wanted to be a doctor and now all of a sudden you want to be a librarian. What happened? No, it's like, okay, can you be a doctor and a librarian? Let's check that out. And so we explore and see what is out there because you can't choose if you don't know what's out there.
I counted them the other day, um, from my first, what I would call my real job. It was actually a business, my first business, at the age of 14. From there until I was 59, I had 27 jobs and or
Wow.
businesses.
Hmm.
27, I counted them. I often referred to having many, and somebody the other day asked me, well, how many? And I thought, yeah, better figure this out. When I was 59, when I was turning 60, I wrote my first book. Um, I wrote my first nonfiction book. I had some other experiences writing novels, but I wrote my first nonfiction business book. And I discovered what I wanted to be when I grew up. And I have been working it ever since. And so that is approximately 14 years now. I have been doing what I love doing, and I'm doing it right now. And to ask a 6 year old what they want to be when they grow up is a fun exercise, but to put any um, pressure on it as being something that's going to happen is just wrong. It's just totally wrong.
I mean, I think most people do it as a fun exercise, but I don't know that I would ask in the first place.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
I I,
Yeah.
I like the,
Yeah.
the concept of exploring. So
yeah.
I might
Mhm.
ask, okay, what are we today? As opposed to what do you want to be when you grow up? Because I feel like when you mentioned allowing ourselves to imagine and
Mhm.
just explore that imagination, I feel like we believe that we grow out of that. And when we become
We don't.
adults, it's like imagination has to be corralled or boxed in somehow as an adult because we have responsibilities. And I feel like self compassion includes that space to really just, daydream sometimes.
Mhm.
It,
Is it
it does.
Twain who says, find a job you'll love and you'll never work a day in your life?
Mhm.
I think,
Yeah,
maybe.
yeah, I kind of disagree with that though. I love what I do, but it is work.
Yeah. Well, there's still some value in that. Twain also
Yeah, I
said,
know I'm teasing.
he said, I object to millionaires on principle, but it would be dangerous to offer me the
Oh,
position. So it
yes.
there's different takes on these things, but I really think that the idea of exploring and together,
Imagination.
sharing with the imagination and
Hmm.
exposing that. I have a signature program called Noboxetol, Your Prescription for Success. And the word Noboxetol sounds like some modern day medicine. And I actually use the RX symbol, and I've got a bottle of capsules spilled out on a prescription pad as the iconic image for the program. And where it comes from is that concept of what you've just shared of people having to feeling they have to box in their imagination when they get, are over 21 sort of thing. And really that's just when they should be releasing their imagination, because it is in that 20 to 28-year range where the brain becomes developed enough to make good decisions, and the ability to determine what is right or wrong for us falls into that area. And it's just at the worst time they're boxing away the imagination. And I heard for years people saying, well, think outside the box, think outside the box, and then you'll be successful. You'll be able to, re-embrace the imagination. And so I came up with my Noboxetol prescription for your personal and business success. No box at all. No box at all. Don't have a box. Don't box it in.
Throw it out. Yep.
Get
Yeah.
it out there. Yeah, yeah,
Because if you keep thinking that there is a box, the idea that you are outside of what is supposed to be
yes.
is still going to be in your mind.
Yeah.
But the fact is, where you are, if that's where you choose and it's working for you and you're contributing to humanity, then that is where you're supposed to be. So wherever it is, there is no box to say you're outside of it.
Yeah.
That's where
So
the
the,
self-compassion comes in, right?
Yeah,
right.
yeah.
You're acknowledging where you are, and you are compassionate about whether you have these lofty goals, and you can still be heading in that direction, but you are
Yeah.
where you are.
Because we're all unique. Every one of us is exquisite. Even if we were in our own box, it wouldn't be the same as other people's box. And it's the same as having the chance to explore, and that's emphasizing to me, whereas it's so important to have a sense of direction, not to be living on purpose, because time is short. I mean, whereas we don't have enough time to do in a daily basis everything that we want to do, yet we do have enough time to do what's important to us. So if we have that sense of direction and we're not getting distracted and we're staying in lane, and so you can see how this is a jar of worms, really, because talking about a holistic view and then having a sense of direction and living on purpose and staying in your lane, you know, staying focused and not getting distracted and having the self discipline to get what you want in order to be happy.
The thing is, though, Gerald, I rebel against the staying in the lane, and not about having a sense of direction. That's very good. But when we start to put parameters, fences around it, then I rebel against that. And the best example that ever came to me was from a guy that I honestly could not respect because of the way he conducted business and the way he treated other people. But he did have a few gems of wisdom that came out from time to time. And he used to refer to the concept. We were in a business that was located in a barn. The barn, a big old barn on a huge farm, a big horse ranch, had been converted into a business premise and offices and a showroom and storage and so on. And we were there on this farm, and the barn was where it was situated. Just to the north of the barn was the parking lot for the business, for the employees that came there and they parked. And going out of the parking lot to the north was the driveway that went up to the cross street. And that street went across to the corner at the edge of the farm, about a quarter mile down, to a road that went south to the nearest town, which was called Bolton. And he used to say, you have to walk north to get your car, to drive north to the road that will take you west to the road to go south to Bolton. Where you wanted to go was south to Bolton. But if you came out of the front door of the offices in the barn and you stood there and said, well, Bolton is south, I want to go south, and you turned, you would have to walk south, you would have to cross fences, open fields, go through forests, and walk several miles, or several, maybe a dozen kilometers to Bolton. If you could even get there, because there were two rivers you'd have to cross as well, and there wouldn't be bridges at that point half a mile over from the road. So you had to go north to go south to Bolton, and people didn't understand that when he said it. Sometimes you have to go north to go south to Bolton. And when you think about that and realize that in terms of a sense of direction, yes, you need to have the sense of direction going south to Bolton, but sometimes you have to make detours and even go in the opposite direction to be positioned to go in the direction you want to go. And we can't forget that. If we get caught up in the platitudes, if we get caught up in the sayings, we can find ourselves walking through open fields and forests and not getting to our destination.
I definitely picked up on that staying in your lane piece too. This morning when I got dressed, knowing that I was coming here today and we were talking about self-compassion, I thought, what is my favorite shirt? What do I want to wear that is my self-care, my self-love? I love this shirt. I have it in 3 colors. And I wear it whenever I can get it, whenever I can. And that was something that I had to come to terms with, is that staying in my lane, if I want to be an entrepreneur and a professional and a solopreneur, what is the image that I need to present to the world? Do I need to wear certain kind of clothing that's going to make me look professional and that it's going to make me be respected and seem like I'm authentic? Well, that's where I stuck on that word, authentic. That's what I want to be. That's who I am.
Yeah.
And who I am is somebody who wears dinosaur shirts because I love them and they make me smile and they make me feel really good. And that's what I want to portray to the world. And that's what I want to portray with my clients. And so staying in my lane looks different, obviously, for everybody, but you have to be in your lane. Not your perceived lane, not what you think, is expected of you, not what, Gerald or Shelly Ann or Stephen think of me, but it's who I am authentically. Yeah. And when you do that, that's when you find flow. And that's when you find that self-compassion of self-acceptance.
Yeah. Yeah. That's critical. Yeah. I take my fashion sense from Steve Jobs. I figure if it worked for him, it'll work for me. So, yeah.
Can I just say, about touching on the staying in lane part? I'm just looking at a card that I've got here, and it's just lying, and it's something I wrote down as a quote, and it says, what is it I want to do? And it says, giving people self-confidence is by far the most important thing that I can do, because then they will act. Whereas to be their authentic self. I mean, I don't want to tell them what to do. I want to empower people enough to be themselves, to
Yep.
confidently go in the direction of their
Mhm.
dreams and live the life that they imagine.
So they
And
would be okay with doing what they want to do because many times we're not. And as Cass said, it's like, we want to, um, we're trying to be something that fits in somebody else's vision and version of ourselves. And I see that a lot, especially I read a lot about, social media marketing and these kinds of things. And there's so many prescriptions. You have to post this amount and you have to do this amount. And I was recently in a LinkedIn challenge, and the challenge was to post every day. And that wouldn't happen in a good week for me ever, right? Even if I planning everyday posting. And so I kind of just scaled it back. And that's another thing with developing habits. We start where it's just out of comfort. So it's doable, but it's just stretching us a little bit. And my followers are growing, connections are growing, but I'm not posting every day. I'm not, posting according to a schedule that somebody else set and says this is what we're going to be doing. Um, and I love that idea of being authentic and understanding. And it takes exploration to be able to identify and
mhm,
understand.
mhm,
And we really do need to give ourselves that permission. For a long time, I didn't have that. I just sort of blew with the wind, went with the breeze. I have lots of skills and talents, and whichever one somebody noticed and said, "Hey, you should follow that. That looks, you're good at that, so do that." I said, "Okay," so I did that. "Oh, you're good at this, do this." Like, okay, I'll do that too. And so there really wasn't a decision about this is what I'm good at, this is what I like, this is what I enjoy, and this is how I can combine it until, not quite 59, but, you know, um, it took a
a
long
while.
time for me because I'm looking at it and seeing my friends in careers and, my siblings following a path. And I'm like, I just want to be and do and explore and have some, interesting experiences. I don't want to even consider that I should try to fit into the box. But then I took it to the other extreme
Mhm.
because I didn't even try to identify what worked and what didn't work. I just went.
Yeah.
So no direction, right, Gerald?
Can,
Well,
can I just summarize? Can I just summarize that one really quickly? And what I was just touching on with the time flying by as well, and
Yeah.
time flies by, in a quote as usual. Time flies by, but it's up to us to navigate. You
Hmm.
know, so we're flying the plane. And it is to all have that, know what we want, and be ourselves. That self confidence part to be yourself, because the example you were given there, Shelley Ann, is like they say this and they say that. Oh, do that. Oh, okay, okay. Who are they? You know.
Yeah, I say that now.
Mm,
When you're young and you feel like you are this small and everybody else is towering around you and telling you things, that's how it felt. So that I'm looking up at all these, career people, these organized people, these people who have it all together. And I'm like, but I don't know. I just want to explore. And one thing I'd like to introduce, it's we really sometimes have setbacks that we're working with that we don't recognize. And we feel like we are disconnected from the rest of humanity because we don't understand what is really happening with us. And it was only when I started entertaining the thought of ADHD that I began to truly understand who I was and allow myself the space to just be who I was. And that's when I started feeling more free to do that.
I want
In the
to
interest of, oh, sorry, go ahead.
go ahead. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, in the interest of time, perhaps we should maybe go around and give our last thoughts on self-compassion here.
Okay. Let me just share two things before I give my last thought, and we'll go around first, and then I'll go last. But the first thing is, I was in that challenge that you were in, Shelly Ann, and the 30-day challenge, and I actually had to go 31 days because I missed one, but I did get my 30 posts in 31 days. And it really was an interesting outcome in that exercise, in that now I'm finished, but I'm still participating in the group, and I'm posting, every few days. I'm not doing every day anymore because it was really strenuous. But I'm feeling guilty about not posting. I'm thinking every day that I should be doing a post. So habits get built in under 30 days, obviously, or 31 days, whatever it was.
With the consistency, yeah.
Yeah. And so that actually was a good thing. It's very easy for me to create a post in there now. And then the other thing I want to say about Gerald, you mentioned the term of confident, being confident, having confidence. And I think whoever's keeping the list, that should be added to our list as a topic to cover, because I think
that can be next week's topic.
Good stuff. Okay, so let's go around the table in the same order you introduced yourselves. Gerald, last thoughts.
Be yourself. Be your authentic self.
Good one. I like that.
You have it all within. It's don't be looking outside for it. It's like, look inside. You have the power to be, do, have whatever you want. It's a choice. And be grateful. I mean, what more could we want? I mean, we write our own movie.
Yes.
Awesome. Cass.
Or
was it Shelly Ann would be next?
It was Shelly Ann.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I was gonna say what he said, right?
Okay.
But I think for me, what comes up to the surface is it's okay, and it's going to be okay. And when we look inward and we see things that we don't want to see, what do? Hiding from it, hiding it, that's not going to make it go away. We have to act on it or understand it and accept it. So we do have that choice, and we can reach out and get support. And once that happens, it's going to be okay.
Good stuff. Cass.
That's happening.
Yeah.
Right now.
Yeah. I think cultivating self-compassion is about kindness to yourself, making it a habit of being kind and being supportive of where you're at. Sometimes it takes radical acceptance of where you're at, but just being kind to who you are, to your authentic self.
Yeah. And I wrote down this phrase or phrases during the conversation that we had, and you've all come back to the idea of be your authentic self and it's okay and so on. And I think this speaks to it in an interesting way. There's a philosopher, I can't think of his name right now, but he said, I am not who I think I am. I am not who you think I am. I am who I think you think I am. Think about that. And I'll leave you with that for now, but that's great. Thank you, everybody, for participating, and for all of those who are watching. Please, if you were watching live, leave a comment in wherever you were watching so we can get a kind of an idea for who was there. If you have any questions, again, leave a comment and mention who the question is for, or if it's just a general question, that's okay. And we'll look forward to everybody being here next week when our topic is confidence.
Awesome.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Wonderful.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.